Given Newcastle United's performances this season, hosting champions Manchester City on Saturday may not be the best fixture. However, I'm fairly confident of a decent performance, and in this video, I'm going to explain why. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, welcome back to another video. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and also like this video. It really does help grow the channel. I'm looking to get towards 700 subscribers. Really thankful for your support, so please continue to help me with this channel. Also get in the comment section, get involved, and let me know what sort of videos you want to see on the channel as well. I've got some ideas to maybe change things up over the course of the next few weeks, but I'll keep you updated on that. We're going to get straight into it with today's video, which is a preview of Newcastle United's clash with Manchester City at St James's Park. Not ideal, as I mentioned in the intro, for Newcastle timing-wise with the performances. It's not been great this season for well-documented reasons. We've said about the performance levels, we've said about the team selection, we've said about the mood around the club, all in recent videos and live streams. I'll leave the reaction to the Fulham defeat in the description below. Maybe this goes against the grain, but I'm fairly confident of a decent performance against Manchester City. I think it's very difficult to expect anything out of a game against a team like City, despite the fact that they'll be without Rodri and possibly Kevin De Bruyne in the team for this game. They'll come into this game frustrated with a disappointing result, if you like, against Arsenal. The fact that they didn't win that game, and the fact that I think Arsenal probably put down a marker in terms of the title race and show that they're on a very similar footing to City. I think they can really take them the distance this season. I think City will need to come into this game and win the game. And I also do want to sort of clarify that I don't think Newcastle are going to play City off the park or anything like that. I understand why. I saw there was a meme that went round with some Arsenal fans quite chuffed with the idea that City were going to Newcastle without Rodri and that it would be a difficult game. And there was a lot of responses to that saying that Newcastle aren't the same team as they have been in the past. I agree with that. I've said that on previous videos. Newcastle haven't looked like the team that can eat teams alive at St James's Park for a long time. They don't have the intensity levels. They don't have the confidence levels. They don't seem to be putting the output there. But I do think that this game suits Newcastle better than most times, because Newcastle have faced teams this season that, as I've said so many times, have given them the ball and made them play the game and then caught them on the counter-attack, caught them in transition. City, of course, can do that because they have so much quality and they exploit space like nobody better in the world. But I think the fact that they will look to dominate the ball allows Newcastle to set traps for them and get back to doing something similar to what they've done in the past. Against City in January, they lost 3-2 Newcastle at St James's Park. And actually, after the game, if you remember, I came on to one of these videos and said that I thought Newcastle would get in the top six. I think they were only in the top half, mid-table certainly after that defeat. And it was a sucker punch with Oscar Bobb's winner after Kevin De Bruyne came onto the pitch to equalise, having been injured for a while. The fact that he might be missing again, he obviously missed on Sunday against Arsenal, is a big boost. The fact that obviously Newcastle will be not facing Rodri is huge, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I think tactically, I think this game suits Newcastle a little bit better than most games have this season. The fact that they were able to turn City over for a good hour in that game actually gave me a lot of confidence that they can still play that way. On that day, they were low on confidence. Their injuries, their fatigue levels were obviously hitting them at that stage of the season. It was difficult. Nobody gave Newcastle a chance on that day, and they really took the game to City. Anthony Gordon and Alexander Isak were brilliant. Bruno Guimaraes was phenomenal as well that day. I think that Newcastle can repeat that in a similar way, that they can hurt City tactically in the transitions. Kyle Walker's had a lot of stick this season. He had a difficult Euros. I was quite vocal on that after the final against Spain. I think Anthony Gordon gave him a tough time in January. He can do that again. Harvey Barnes is obviously in great form as well as another option. He can do that too. So I think Newcastle do have tactically the ideal setup for this game. They can turn City over and hit them on the counter-attack with pace. That's what they've been best at, and winning the ball high, pressing high. That's what they can do. But they have to be brave to do that. The fact that Rodri isn't there, as I say, is a massive plus. They also have to be brave and have to concentrate a lot. They can't allow City too much space to hit them, because City are probably the best team in the world at making chances pay. That's why I've seen them play on the second gear so many times and still win games fairly comfortably, because they hit teams like nobody else in Europe, I would argue, they take their chances. I think that was the case against City in January. Newcastle were a better team after the first 20 minutes, I would say. When they turned the game around, Isak and Gordon scored. Newcastle were looking good for a victory. Then De Bruyne comes on, and suddenly a couple of bits of magic. His equaliser, then that pass for Oscar Bob, and Newcastle are losing 3-2. I think that's what they need to be careful of. Obviously, Erling Haaland up front. He scored in the game 2 years ago when Newcastle drew 3-3. They were phenomenal that day, Newcastle, really hitting again the energy. The high press was there. Newcastle got the stadium behind them. They raced into that 3-1 lead. They were phenomenal that day, and that was a real benchmark for that season. But they still drew 3-3 with 2 quick goals from City, who sucker punched them and hit them where it hurt. So they've got to be careful, and I think that ultimately might affect the result, the fact that City can do that, because they can do that to anybody. But I think Newcastle, it's important to sort of get some confidence back and show that Anthony Gordon's still the player that we know he is, because he hasn't really hit the ground running this season. Isak's had a couple of difficult weeks because of fitness issues, but also tactically it didn't work for him at Fulham. This is a game where they can get back to type. They can get back to not having the pressure on them to dominate the ball. That will suit them. I've said this. I don't think that they can go with the same midfield they did at Fulham. I said last week it was far too open. Willock and Joe Linton and Bruno. I think one single pivot against City is criminal. There's too much space in there that even without Rodri, City can and will exploit. So I think I would bring Tonali in to play alongside Bruno. Maybe drop. I think he'll most likely drop Willock. I would argue possibly it might be better to drop Joe Linton after the recent performances, but either one of those will come out. I would bring Tonali in. He might bring Longstaff back in, but either one needs to be in there to sort of get Newcastle a foothold in the game, keep the spaces to a minimum, but also then hit them quickly with quick passes out to Gordon, to Murphy, most likely, or Barnes, and Isak. I think that's the way Newcastle need to play this game, and if they can do that like they did in January, they had a lot of joy. They had a lot of joy at St James's Park, obviously, in the year before when they drew 3-3. This is going to be a difficult game. I don't think you can expect a victory, but I think that's why I'm more confident than I have been about Newcastle's ability to put a stamp on this game, because obviously they've struggled to do that in this transition from playing that intense game, playing that sort of counter-attacking game, and that ability to play in the transitions. They've not been able to do that in recent games. They've had the ball, they've been dominant in midfield, but they've not been able to use that to their advantage, and they've succumbed to transitions the other way around. Obviously, City can still do that. That's what happened with those goals later. De Bruyne was able to turn the game around and turn Newcastle's midfield around. That can still happen. But I think they try and play a slow, laborious, possession-based game like they have done in recent weeks, they'll come unstuck. I think if they take the game to City, they really try and turn them around in the midfield and get the ball, get Anthony Gordon making Kyle Walker run the other way, and obviously they'll have space to exploit. City have a poor record without Rodri because they can't dominate the ball as much in that midfield area. That's where Newcastle have been hurt in the past. I think that's where they can hurt City. Long term, they've got a problem there, and I think ultimately that those kind of margins are going to be difficult for them in the title race. It is going to be difficult for City to react to that. And I think this is a massive test. I do think that them coming to St James's Park without Rodri, Newcastle can hurt them. But Newcastle have to be brave, and Newcastle also have to play with a different sort of mentality and a different level of intensity than they have done all season. I do think they can do that. I do think it'll be difficult though, and I still think City have the ability to sucker punch. I think Newcastle, the best that Newcastle can hope for is a draw, if I'm honest. But I think the performance and showing that they can take the game and showing that they can play with confidence is every bit as important, because they've had good results this season without any suggestion that they're going to find their best level. And as I've said on previous podcasts on here and on True Faith, my worry is that it's been a little bit inexplicable. It's been a little bit difficult to see where they come out to the, tactically, that whether what they're trying to do, but also in their performance levels and their confidence levels. It's difficult to see how they get that level of performance. If they can do that against City, it can really kickstart their season. And I think that even without a victory, because they've got good results this season, they've just not had good performances. As I say, if they can get City facing their own goal like they have done in the last couple of years, then they could cause some damage, and they could possibly even nick a draw in this game. Ultimately, though, I think it'll be difficult with Haaland up front and Phil Foden and all of the quality that they have. It just takes one chance, and City are the best team in the world at exploiting that. Ultimately, it's going to be a difficult game. Thanks so much for joining me on this video. Like, share and subscribe, as I said, and I'll be back this weekend, possibly on Sunday, to look at the City game with a live reaction, and then obviously the tactical analysis early next week. Then straight into rearranged Wimbledon game at St James's Park in the Carabao Cup to face a shootout, to face Chelsea in the Cup, because that was the draw done last night. Thanks so much for joining me. Like, share and subscribe, as I say. I'll see you next time. Cheers.